What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Dead Noise. I'm Chris, and thanks to the power of Zoom, I have the pleasure of talking to saxophone extraordinaire, Mr. J.R. Wasilewski from my favorite ska band of all time, Less Than Jake. How you doing today, sir?
I'm much better now that you called me a saxophone extraordinaire. It's a heavy title. Heavy weighs the crown, I suppose. But certainly very kind words and nice to talk to you, Chris.
I try to give props where props are due, and there's so much that I want to talk with you about because Less Than Jake has had such a phenomenal career just in the time that you've been in the band. So I kind of want to start at the beginning with your time in the band, but they put out an album just before you joined called Borders and Boundaries, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
Coming into the band so soon after the release of it, what was your impression of the album and what was your overall process like with learning those songs in particular?
Well, when I joined the band, it was right at before the summer before Borders and Boundaries was released. Borders and Boundaries was released October 24th,
Hmm.
2000. And I joined June 21st-ish, 2000. So I'd already been in the band for a couple of months, and I knew those songs prior to the record being released because we were playing Gainesville Rock City and Look What Happened, and maybe Hell Looks a Lot Like LA while we were on the tour before the record came out. So I knew the songs really well, and I did all of the touring for the record in support of the record, for what they did, in between you know, recording it. Darren had quit right afterwards, and so I joined, and so I have a pretty strong kinship to that record, even though I didn't actually track on it. But I feel like I was a part of the band during that time period. So yeah, it was good. Record's great. I really enjoy it. I thought it was a big sonic transition from Hello Rockview to Borders and Boundaries. Borders sounded more bigger guitars, more layers, maybe a little bit more thought out songwriting arrangements than they previously. So it was a cool record to join on for sure.
And that's a fantastic point too about the evolution sonically from Rockview to Borders and Boundaries, because that was something that I kind of took note of because I was in high school when I first got into Less Than Jake's music, so I kind of started at the beginning. And Sound the Alarm was the new EP at the time. I was a junior, and so I'm like, okay, let me start from the beginning. And I'm like, what? This is like a completely different band to a certain degree. But then Borders and Boundaries, every band when they have a certain lineup change, it kind of comes to that. Like when AFI had Jade Puget join the lineup, they had a whole new sonic identity. When Bruce Dickinson joined Iron Maiden or Neil Peart joined Rush, and I feel like production played a lot into the part of Borders and Boundaries, kind of leveling up the sound as well.
Yeah.
When it came to the next album and the first one with you in the fold, Anthem, did Darren's playing style or the way that the songs were written for the sake of the horn section, did it differ from the way that you typically write or perform in this type of music?
Yeah, because I mean, just sonically speaking, he played a baritone saxophone and I played tenor saxophone.
Right.
I wasn't going to start playing a bari sax. I think they wanted me to play bari sax. Like there was talk of it, and I was like, I don't see how it makes it better.
Hmm.
I feel like it gets bare. It's a lost sound wave, and it just gets buried. Like I could never hear what Darren was playing on the recordings. You know what I mean? Because it's just a very muddy sounding instrument. There's not a lot of definition to it, and that's not a knock on Darren, just a knock on the horn. And for a tenor sax, it kind of cuts through, gave me a higher register over because they had already had Pete Anna, who was on that record too, played like a alto trombone to try to get those higher notes that I could just naturally play on the tenor sax. And I was just like, so what are we doing? And it's whatever. On Anthem, I play Barry on a couple of tracks because they missed it or whatever. But I mean, I to this day I've never heard anybody go, man, I really missed that Barry sax on what. And I'm sure there's people that do and respect. You know what I mean? Like that's your thing, man. And there's probably people that are like, man, Less Than Jake sucked ever since JR joined, and that's hey, respect. That's your opinion too. We still play the old songs, you know, and maybe you missed the Barry sax, but you can hum along the Barry sax part in your head, I guess, you know.
I get the impression that you guys are one of those bands that always has that subsection of the fan base that lives and dies by the first three records.
Sure.
Every band has a fan base like that, but when it comes to Borders and Boundaries, you said that you kind of feel a kinship to that record, even though you didn't play on it because of the familiarity before the release. How do you look at albums that came before it? Because I know Pezcore is celebrating an anniversary soon, and Rockview, you guys just toured on Rockview again last year.
As
What's your
course they did.
connection to those records?
You know, my kinship to those records are the same as any other, you know, like I've been in the band for so long, you know, I probably like the recording of certain songs like there's records sonically I like, you know, I kind of rate records sonically, the ones before I was in the band, like sonically which ones I liked, but the songwriting was always the same dudes, you know.
Hmm.
So um I like the songs. There's some songs that I think are awesome and then some songs that I think are not so awesome, you know, and that's like, but I think that same way about anything that we recorded, like or that I've been a part of. There's songs on um uh, you know, greetings and salutations that I'm like, we wrote that, you know, like so it's just like you know, it's interesting what people like and when they got into the band, and you know, I always find that stuff to be like fun fodder to like talk about, but like in reality, I don't care when you show up to the party. I'm just glad you're at the party, you know.
How long did it take you to kind of be confident enough to talk about albums like that you weren't a part of? Like now talking about Borders and Boundaries or
Yeah.
other releases, does it feel kind of odd to you?
I mean, I talk about them in a it's kind of like a quasi fan perspective
Hmm.
for the older records that I wasn't on, because I am a fan of Less Than Jake now, because when I joined the band I wasn't a fan of,
Right.
you know what I mean, like it took me joining the band and being around and being like, oh, that's a, you know, you learn. It's funny once you kind of close your ego down a little bit and you approach things just openly, like how wonderful life is, you know, and like how much you'll realize is awesome in life. You know, so when I talk about the old records, I've heard all the stories. I feel like I've been in the room. You know what I mean? Like when all that shit happened, because I've heard the stories 1,000 times, you know, and like what it was like to record with Mike Rosen, and, you know, what the fucking blue and white smelled like, and, you know, how many toy stores they stopped at. And, you know, man, it's like you just, and then you live it for a long time too. And then the stories kind of blend into the real world. And so then you're just kind of telling the story of the story.
Hmm.
So for me, it's just always been like a part of, you know, it's now I've been more a part of this band than I have been alive. I've been a part of this band longer, you know, it's the most the thing that I've done in my life. 26 years is a long time. So, you know, I am grateful for it, and I try not to think too much about it. But like when I'm talking about things that I wasn't around for, I guess it's kind of like quasi fan, quasi insider
Hmm.
approach. You know what I mean? Because yeah, I wasn't there, but definitely I have the inside information. You know, and any of those other dudes would be like, "Oh yeah," and I remember things that they told me that they don't remember happened. That's how that shit's funny too. I'm like, I wasn't even there. How do I know that shit?
And do you kind of agree when you listen back to those records as a fan, is it easy to kind of tell when the turning point was, or is it kind of how hard to detach yourself from that because you were a part of those albums for so long, like the rest of Less Than Jake's career? Because I see Borders and Boundaries as a turning point sonically and musically, but do you feel that way?
I feel every record's been a turning point.
That's fair.
Everything's different, you know what I mean? It's still Less Than Jake because those two dudes sing, and like, you know, for a long time it was Vinny writing a good majority of the words, and then,
Hmm.
you know, Vinny left and We're like, well, how are we going to do this? We're like, well, it's still the same guys writing the music. Like, maybe we can write words, like, and fucking go figure, we could write words. And like I said, it's not, I just look at it, music now, for like any release that we do, it has to be great in our eyes, not just good, not just, oh, we're just gonna fart this one out, and because then it just ends up, you become a fucking play on yourself, you know, and like, yeah, Less Than Jake, we joke, we say we're not a one-hit wonder, we're a 30-year failure, but in reality, it keeps us driven to try to write good music, and we want to write good music. We are proud of what we've written, and we're proud of the growth, and we're proud to show the growth as far as like what we can do as songwriters and performers and so on and so forth. And so like, it's a thing that we think about, it's a thing that we're constantly constantly arguing about, and but that's what makes good art, I think. It's the conflict and then the resolution. And so when we finally come to the resolution, I feel like it's really good, and like, that's not just me patting myself on my back. I did an interview before this, and she was like, well, what do you think of the music, when it comes out? And it's, to me, it's the greatest songs we've ever written when we put them out. But then, like, my ownership of it, as soon as it's released, it's not mine anymore, it's yours. And
Mhm.
it's up to you to decide how it ranks in the pantheon of Less Than Jake lore, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But for us, it's just a song that we really like and we want to share with you guys, So, because if the five of us can grow to like it, it's got to be okay. That's how I've always. I mean, it may not be the best song we ever wrote, but it's got to be fucking okay. I mean, please.
That reminds me of something that my favorite artist, Alice Cooper, says all the time in his interviews. He's like, the people at my age, like Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney, we're still making music because all of us feel like, even with our catalog, we still feel like we haven't written our best song yet. Do you guys feel like you're kind of in that same place too?
Yeah, actually, when I was working on a song last night, I was like, maybe this is the best song I ever wrote. I'm like, maybe I already wrote the best song I'll ever write.
Mm.
It's hard to say, but like, as an artist, it's like, I don't know what else to do. This is all I've ever done. You know what I mean? So, I guess Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick said it to me one time. He goes, I guess we could have stopped, but none of us would know what else to do. Like, so this is what we do best. So we're just going to keep doing it, or attempting to.
I think you guys are doing a pretty good job. Having, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you, but having grown up on Borders and Boundaries and Greetings and Salutations, I have my favorites, but hearing newer songs like Dear Me, that gives me the chills just like hearing Abandoned Ship or Rest of My Life for the first time. So you guys are still on a great trajectory.
Oh, thanks, man. That's really nice of you to say. Like I said, we just write songs, and if the five of us, if it passes the five of us, then we think it's got to be at least okay.
And I know a lot of the songs on Borders and Boundaries, there's 15 songs on the original release, and I know some of them are still in your life set to this day, like Gainesville Rock City, and of course, Look What Happened. When you look back and you listen to that album and kind of think of all the other tracks on there, are there any that stick out to you that maybe you don't play live very often, or just songs that you think deserve more love from that record?
I always liked Is This Thing On? I thought that was a really good song. Just didn't, you know. Um, I like Pete Jackson's Getting Married. It's a good one. Uh, there's a lot of it's some of the songs they're interesting on that. Like, some have choruses and some don't have choruses. Like a song like Suburban Myth is a song that I think all those other guys thought was going to be like a single, and I was just like, there's no chorus. You know what I mean? But it's still a really good song. It's fun. Like, when we play it live, people like it. So it's but it's an interesting song. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm like, where's the chorus? And they're like, well, this part's the chorus. I'm like, are you sure?
And I know Look What Happened got remade on the following album, Anthem. What was it like to play on that, and what kind of inspired the reasoning behind remaking it for that album?
Our A&R guy loved the song. So Craig Aronson, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he's the guy who also signed us to Capitol. And so when we signed to Capitol, he also made us re-record Johnny Quest, right? Because he really liked that song,
Hmm.
believed in it. And he was the same thing with Look What Happened. And he figured he didn't know how the other songs would do in radio, but he always felt like Look What Happened was like a winner, you know? And he's like, we could always go to radio with that. Well, they went with She's Gonna Break Soon, and then the guy at K Rock decided to just start playing Science, and so everything got rushed and fucked, and it's whatever. You know, again, I'm never upset for what we had or the opportunities that we were given. It was always just like tripping over each other to, try to get something. But we, like I said, not mad at it. Just that's what it was. Um, but yeah, Look What Happened though never got. There's always been different versions of it too. The way we play it live is not like any of the recorded versions. It's a completely different arrangement. So, like, but I think it's probably our one of our most quintessential songs that never was a single, Maybe we should change that. Figure it out.
Have a third version for the next record.
Why not? Fucking let's keep it going.
That's really interesting because I still have yet to see you guys live for the first time. So I
Oh,
was kind of wondering like how certain songs differ in a live setting because I would imagine that the horn section would have some improvisation and stuff like that in a live show that wouldn't really be fitting on an album. Is that the case?
I don't know. I guess you'll have to come see us play live and figure that one out. It changes, we switch things up show to show, tour to tour normally, actually. So, sometimes we play things that aren't there, sometimes we do. Sometimes it's verbatim, sometimes it's, things that should have been there.
Hmm.
There's a lot of should have been theirs, you know, that happens. So, it's because live is a different animal a little bit, so because you're in the moment. So I always felt that if you go see a band play live and it sounds exactly like the song, the record, there's nothing exciting about that at all. It's I'll just sit at home and listen to the record. Beers are cheaper, so is parking.
And how do you guys go about picking your set list? 'Cause I know this is a very kind of a stock question that you probably get all the time, but there's a heavy emphasis on the old stuff. But I'm sure when a new release is out, like Uncharted, you guys want to play stuff from that. Do you have an ideal like time frame? Like, do you prefer to do like an hour and a half, or how does that go about for you?
Um, Usually when we come up with a set list, it is just Chris.
Hmm.
We say, "Go ahead, have at it," and he's the one who comes up with the set list, and then he sends it around. We all make notes on it, but he's pretty thoughtful about things. He tries to keep it balanced, something off of each record. Sometimes he forgets certain releases, and then maybe somebody will be like, "Oh, I want to play this one this tour," and maybe we'll put this one on the B list, or because then we'll have songs that we'll practice to change out certain spots, certain nights, to keep it different. Um, but that's really how it goes. And then when we're on tour, the first, we try to bring it into a rehearsal, and then the first two or three shows, we usually know by like the third show
Hmm.
what songs are getting a good response, which songs are laying flat and we need to replace. And, you know, it's a lot of tinkering, but that's how it normally works out. But five guys trying to write a set list, that'll never happen. It's just Chris gives one and then we figure it out. Everybody has their responsibilities.
Has there ever been a moment where you guys thought a song was going to go well with a certain crowd, but then it was like not a very great reaction, or a song that you thought like, oh, maybe we'll just play this, but nobody will really
Oh
have a big
man.
reaction, and then they
Oh
do?
yeah. Yeah, you just never know. We played, I forgot what song. We were playing something off. on the summer tour. We're playing something, and then like at some point we're playing something in the set, and then at some point we played My Very Own Flag.
Oh
And I
wow.
was just like, why haven't we been playing that song the whole tour? And everybody was like, I don't know. So we just put that in, and I was like, oh, you know, there's the song, there's the set list. So
I was a band kid all through elementary, not middle and high school. I was a trumpet player, and when I got into Less Than Jake's music, I was like the lead trumpet in the jazz band, and it was the first ska band I had ever heard. So I'm like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And I know you went to, was it Berkeley for music education? What was your schooling like? Did you enjoy band so much, or was it something that you kind of fell into?
I guess when I was like a sophomore in high school, I guess I always knew what I wanted to do, but I just didn't really know how I was going to go about convincing my parents, who were pretty conservative, you know, like, hey, your kid wants to go to music school and play saxophone, like, how are you going to make money there? So I was like, oh, teaching, right? Go get a teaching degree. Seemed to make sense. My father was like, oh, yeah, teaching, sure. But like, meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm like, how do I get on tour? When for me, it was the Mighty Mighty Boss Stones. That was and Fishbone. Those were the two
Mm.
bands that I was like, oh shit, I can play saxophone and like rock. Like it's not just like, a dude with a guitar or whatever. Because when I was a kid, like little, like younger, middle school, it was metal was really big. The 80s hair metal was really big, and so I played bass poorly, and I was like, oh man, I'm never gonna succeed. And then 90s rolled around, metal died, and hello, ska punk.
I'm sure with years of experience, this is like it's not too difficult for you at this point, but when you were first getting on the road with maintaining your embouchure and stuff like that, was that difficult, like not blowing your chops out? Because I know as a brass player, that was something I struggled with just in marching band, but as a touring professional, was that a hard adjustment for you?
Yeah, I mean, and plus you're in front of a guitar amp screaming, you know what I mean? So, and inept monitor guys and underpowered monitors. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of learned to deal with it. Earplugs helped. If
Mm.
you put earplugs in, you kind of hear your vibrations in your head. But yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard. But we're in ears now, so it's like a whole new world.
I was about to say, because I hear a lot of bands, they're like, man, I wish I had these 20 years ago.
I probably wouldn't have such shitty tinnitus at this point.
Oh yeah, I can't. I can't. I used to be one of those concert goers. I was like, oh, earplugs mess with the sound. It muffles it. It's not as good. Then I started wearing earplugs to shows after COVID, and I was like, what was I ever thinking?
Yeah, I don't like loud. I like it quiet. So now I don't really watch too many bands anymore. And if I do, I'm definitely on the side of the stage.
Mm.
Not loud. It's not as loud out in front, on the side as it is out front. So
That's what I've heard. Unless they have wedges on stage, you almost can't really hear them play, from
yeah,
what I've heard.
true.
And when it comes to your guys' writing process, because I'm so compartmentalized when it comes to like the rock instrumentals and then the horn section, so I imagine it's like a completely separate thing. But is that the case with Less Than Jake music? Like, or is it all happening at once? Like, do you guys hear a bed of music with the guitars and then you come up with your own lines?
Depends on each song. Each song is different. Sometimes um the person who wrote the song, like the main songwriters are Chris Roger and then myself.
Mm.
So like sometimes there'll be a part they that the writer has that they're like, oh, this, and then the rest of it's just kind of left up to us to figure it out. There's other times where it's just like there's nothing there, and then is there something there? Is it just a pop song with no horns? Like what are we doing? So it just varies song to song, but there's no like, you know, form cut. This is how this works. It's just varies song to song. Sometimes Chris writes the horn part. Sometimes it's all Buddy. Sometimes it's all me, you know. Sometimes Roger writes part, you know, like it's just kind of varies.
When it came to the lyrical process after Vinny left and he was kind of the primary lyricist for his time in the band, was there a lot of anxiety that came with writing the lyrics for you guys?
A little bit, you know, I mean, there's always anxiety when it comes to songwriting, but I mean, you know, we've been doing this for a long time, and like I said, just because we don't write lyrics for Less Than Jake didn't mean that people didn't know how to write lyrics, you know what I mean? So it's just figuring out what's good. It actually made it at times more creative because there was more room to expand on ideas than perhaps when Vinny was in the band. Not again, not speaking ill of the creative process with him, just
Hmm.
it's different. That's all, you know. So there was some anxiety, but all that was quelled once we just started working on the music, you know.
And this is kind of a two-parter question, but when it comes to the set list, do you guys ever put those songs that have little to no horns in the set list? And if so, what do you guys do? Do you kind of just hang out and drink water backstage and have a bit of a break, or
Yeah,
do you kind of
sometimes
improvise?
it just depends on the set. Like sometimes there's a thing that happens there, like you know, some gimmick or you know some moment or you know, and then sometimes it's just sitting there and I sing backgrounds to a lot of things. So maybe
That's
it's
right.
a lot of backgrounds or, you know, Buddy's just kind of running around and doing what Buddy does. You know, we stay busy, I guess.
And you mentioned Cheap Trick earlier, and a highlight of Anthem for me was the cover of Surrender. When did they hear your guys' take on that? Because I know you guys had toured together. Did they have an opinion on that?
Yeah, Rick really liked it. You know, Robin, they were all very, very gracious to us. So, um, it's cool. Cheap Trick is one of the greatest. They're an American treasure.
As a big horror movie fan, as you can kind of tell behind me, I have to ask about your experience with recording "It Is the End" with Ice Nine Kills, because that's become such a live staple in their show. And I know Spencer grew up being a huge Less Than Jake fan. What was it like to get to work with him?
That was a project that was brought to us by our former booking agent, Dave Shapiro, who passed away kind of tragically earlier this year.
Hmm.
Um, but he had reached out to Buddy and I. We were coming back from South America a few years back, and he's like, "Hey, Ice Nine Kills has this song, and they really want you to do the horns on it." And we really didn't have a ton of time to do it because we were really in between tours and
Mm.
like we had I think we only had like 5 days. So I remember talking with Spencer and oh gosh, I can't remember their guitar player's name.
Ricky?
Might have been Rick, yeah. And they sent over the tracks and they were like, here's what we're looking for. And I remember Buddy always kind of records first and he's like, ooh, did you listen to it? And I was like, no. And he's like, it's a lot. There's a lot. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, oh shit, there's a lot. And so like playing it ended up being really cool. You know, like I said, it was one of those things where you know, I knew Ice Nine Kills from Warped Tour, you know, and I
Mm.
always liked Spencer. He's a good kid. And I like that band. I always thought they were really good. You know, I was like, damn, you know, these guys are tight. Not the biggest horror fan, and I'm not the biggest metal fan, but I was like, these guys are doing something kind of rad, you know, like nobody was really doing anything like that. And then I never realized how much it like helped our band ultimately. I was like, oh my God, because so many people were like, first time I heard of your band was because the Ice Nine Kills thing. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy, you know, like, so I'm very thankful and grateful that we did it, you know. And like, we've never played it with them live. It's always been the guys from Real Big Fish that play with them because just never lines up, like our time never lines up. Someday it'll work out. I don't know when. So, but I'm just glad that they play it in their set and like they're bringing horn players out for the whole tour to play multiple songs. And I think that's rad, man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because I haven't seen them live in like 3.5 years now. So when I saw that they had brought on horn players in their live show, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to see them live again immediately. Because that's as a former trumpet player, that's like the coolest thing to me. Um,
Those are great, man. Great band.
and I feel like I don't know how a full tour with you guys would go. I personally would love it, but do you feel like your fan bases kind of coincide to warrant something like that?
Probably not, but we would do a show together. Like you never know. You never say never, I guess, right?
Before I let you go, this is my favorite part of every interview is a speed round, but I kind of want to do something a little bit different with you. I want to put two Less Than Jake albums against each other, and I want you to pick your favorite one out of the two. So
Okay.
I've got five matchups, and we'll we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right. So Pez Core or Losing Streak,
Oh boy. Losing streak.
Borders and Boundaries or Anthem,
Anthem.
Gainesville, Florida or See the Light,
See the light.
Uncharted or Sound the Alarm,
Uncharted.
Greetings and Salutations or In with the Out Crowd.
In with the out crowd.
Really? Okay.
Because
Y-
Greetings and Salutations isn't really a record. It's like
yes, two
like
EPs.
things that were recorded in like two different complete time frames, and In with the Out Crowd was a complete thought of records, a complete collection of songs.
And was that the first record where you kind of did a lot of backing vocals, or was that already a thing you had been doing?
Yeah, I mean, I had done it a little bit, but like In with the Out Crowd was probably the one I did the most backing vocals to,
Mm.
from what I did on Anthem wasn't that many. So,
Well, I know for a fact I could talk to you for hours, but I don't want to take too much of your time today. But was there any closing message to any Less Than Jake fans watching? Anything you want to plug? I know you guys have some shows in the UK. Was there anything else coming up in the future for you guys?
there's always stuff coming up. The best way to find out what's going on is to follow us on social media. You can look at our Facebook, you can look at our Instagram, you can look at our X account, even though some people probably won't. And we're probably on Threads, and then there's probably a Discord that you can join, and there's a lot of information you could find on our Discord. And you can always just go to lessthanjake.com, and that has all the information of where you can see us live. Takes us to all the merch stores that we have across the globe, and you can buy a shirt or an MP3. People buy MP3s anymore. Uh,
Sometimes.
yeah, well, either way, or buy nothing. You can watch our videos, just enjoy your afternoon. So, but yeah, that's it. I don't really have anything poignant to say other than thanks for supporting us, and thank you for having me on your podcast. This is great.
Oh, thank you so much for the time. I really can't thank you enough. Like I said, this was a big highlight for me as a huge fan of your band, and I'm very much looking forward to the day I get to see you guys live whenever the time comes. Fingers crossed for next year. Um, but until then, thank you again so much for the time, and everybody who watched this, thank you so much for watching. And until the next interview, stay tuned, stay scared, and I'll catch you later.